because stimming is supposed to keep your emotions in check, because a lot of autistic people have too much of it. For example, some autistic people get overwhelmed just by being happy. Like, being happy is normally viewed as good, but autistic people feel some things so extremely strong that they need some form of keeping themselves from exploding with all of the emotions in them. So that's where the stimming comes in. But if they're not allowed to do that, there's a constant stressing out, because you have to hold yourself together, but you also can't use your methods of holding yourself together. And that is, it's like super painful to hold in this, like, a stimming method.
Starting off with explaining.
Hello and welcome to aCTUALLYaUTISTIC with Mulán and Jiang. Today we're talking about emotions.
And we think this is an important subject because there's a lot of prejudice when it comes to autistic people and emotions. Yes, people with autism have emotions, and they have a lot of emotions too. It's more a question about how to handle and express your emotions that might differ and make people misinterpret. What messes it up is that you might express emotions differently. Like, for instance, you don't have a lot of facial expressions, or you don't have the same kind of body language or the tone of voice. It might look like you're numb or not sensitive.
A lot of people compare autistic people to either psychopaths or sociopaths because they see no difference with the whole emotion thing, because they can't recognize any emotion. Because I realized that people often misunderstood me, and I realized, it's probably because I don't show emotion as they do. So I'm gonna figure out how they portray it. And I did. But every time I did show emotion, people would react negatively.
Gillberg Center is a Swedish institute for research on neurodiversity. They talk about two different kinds of empathy. One is cognitive empathy and the other one is affective empathy, and you have to discriminate between those two because they're different. The cognitive empathy relates to what is usually named as theory of mind, like how to be able to put yourself into another person's perspective, and that it might be hard to understand somebody else's emotions if you haven't felt those emotions yourself. Affective empathy is when you watch somebody, for instance, being badly treated, then it hurts you because you can recognize what that person is going through. Affective empathy is something that autistic people do feel a lot of. A couple of weeks ago I wanted to show you Rain Man because it's like an iconic movie.
Yeah, the actor who played the autistic man did a really, really, really good job.
But when we started to watch it, we had to stop because you were crying.
Yeah.
So what was it with the movie that made you so sad?
I feel like it's because I'm autistic myself, so I could see myself in the boy, or adult in this case. It was very much verbal abuse that the man had to go through. It was only when autistic character was being pushed too far out of his comfort zone and had a meltdown, I could see myself in him getting super, super stressed because he was being forced into a situation that he wasn't mentally ready for.
So alexithymia is the difficulty to understand, be able to label one's emotions. For instance, you can feel an emotion, but you don't know if it's like sadness or anger or something else. Researchers have found that about half of the population that has autism also have alexithymia, so there is a heightened degree. But it is important to understand that people with autism that doesn't have alexithymia feel emotions in the exactly same way as neurotypical people without alexithymia. So alexithymia is the condition here. It's not autism itself.
So in psychology, there's this thing called making excuses or rationalization, where you basically take something that may be bad, maybe something that you don't, like, most people view badly about, and then you rationalize it.
Like that kind of rationalizing a bad behavior, like the healthy side to that is reappraisal, Reappraisal means that you have a situation that hasn't been good, but you try to think about it so it makes sense to you, but in a healthy way. The counterpart to that is to suppress, that you try to hide or deny or your emotions and suppress them and don't show them at all. And usually you have a mix of the two. And a part of suppressing emotions might be good, like in certain circumstances, maybe you don't want to lose your face, or maybe you don't want to show the other person that you hurt. But if you have suppression as your main method of coping or dealing with overwhelming or bad emotions, then of course that is not good. So suppressing your emotions is something that autistic people have been taught by people around them. We also know for a fact that autistic people, especially girls and women with autism, have a heightened risk of psychological illness like depression or anxiety, being suicidal. When we were doing research for this episode and we wrote in emotions and autism, we got a lot of things about how much of a trouble children with autism is. I realize there are things that is hard with having a child that you can comfort, and that it might make you feel like a really bad mother. I felt that way too. But it's not really you that, it's not your kid that is the problem, really.
You're not the victim in that situation.
No.
Most of the time it's your child, because either the child is being degraded by someone outside of the home, or you are subconsciously degrading them without even realizing it. Like for example, maybe you tell them, "You're so annoying, why are you so negative?" That's already degrading them, because they're trying to be themselves at home, where it's like the only place where they feel comfortable, and then they're not allowed to be comfortable there. So where can they retreat to? Goodbye and stay safe. Next time we're gonna be talking about family life.